Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. This is our Affordable Materials Grants interest meeting for anybody who is interested in applying for an Affordable Materials Grant. I'm Jeff Gallant. I'm the Program Director of Affordable Learning Georgia. I will let Nikita introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nikita Afaha, and I'm the program manager for Affordable Learning Georgia. You can kind of think of us as the dynamic duo where Jeff heads up the administration and I'm kind of the operations and here to help you today.
And if you'd like to introduce yourselves, please type that right into the chat. Please be sure to keep your mics off unless you are asking a question. You never know who's going to barge into your office and start complaining about their day. And that will wind up in the meeting recording if that winds up being the case. So we try to actively mute anybody who enters, but that's why. But if you want to talk, absolutely do share your microphone at that point. Welcome, Chris. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. All right. So you might be seeing these slides and you see 54 of them. We are not going to do 54 slides. There's just a whole bunch of additional info on the slides at the end, just in case we have time. That's probably not going to be the case, but I just wanted to let you know this is not a 54 slide presentation. We are going to respect your time. We're going to go through each of the grants, what the types are, how the funding works, and what to consider if you're going to apply for one of these. Welcome to Sujani. Welcome to, Dr. G as well. Thank you. After that, we're going to go over the timeline. So what are the dates that you're going to need to know for this particular round 29? We're going to go over how to apply. We're not going to start sharing screens and going to Word documents and all of that. That could be a real technical hassle and a lot of awkward silence. Instead, what we're going to do is talk about the planning process from where you should get started to where you should end. If you do have any trouble with the forms or anything like that, we have our email addresses at multiple points. Please do reach out as soon as you have any questions. And then, yeah, we will set aside some time for questions as well. Before we get started, just a quick heads up to folks who are not at a USG institution. So Affordable Learning Georgia is a USG program. We're in the Library Services Division along with Galileo. Our grants are USG funding, and because of that, we can only award affordable materials grants to USG institutions via their teams. If you are not in a USG institution, but you are on a USG institution's team, that's welcome. Institutions have different ways of doing this. They usually bring folks in as contractors. If you are partnering up to save your students money at an institution that is not USG, those do not go on the application as student savings. And the reason for that is that we are tracking USG student savings over here because that is what we are accountable for as an initiative and what we are geared towards in our mission. If you're saving students money in Texas, if you're saving students money at a private college in Georgia, that's awesome and amazing. It's just not something that's on the numbers that we are looking at. And if you're not in a USG institution and you're not going to be on a USG team, you're still welcome to be here. If you want to know how our grant program works, this is a cool way to start. Get in contact with us through email, and we will even set up meetings with you to talk about how it's done and how you can run your program at your institution if that's the case. So yeah, just to clear that up, I wouldn't want you to go through this whole thing and then go, oh wait, I can't apply. Why was I even here? Just going to save a little bit of time before that got started. Some helpful links to know. The first one is the Apply for a Grant page. We have all of our deadlines, our dates, our forms, our templates. They're all there for anybody who wants to apply for a grant. So this is the page that you're going to be returning to quite a bit if you want to apply for an ALG grant. If you want to see previous projects, go to our grants archive page. That one is a little bit different because it is a Power BI report. Uh, we have cleverly turned a gigantic Excel file with links to every single proposal into its own little database of sorts. And therefore, you're able to filter by your institution. You can search for a project lead if you want to know, hey, I know this person. What else have they done? If you want to filter by the subject, you totally can. That is it's a really nice way of taking a look at all of this stuff without having a web guru build something out and then never be able to change how it's going. So yeah, the Grants Archive is a great place to look for all of our previous projects. Now you have champions at every institution. These are folks who are very experienced with OER, with instructional design, with finding great resources over at the libraries. And if you want to ask anybody on your campus, hey, how can I get some help with this? How do I get started? What should I do? Your champions are the first folks I would recommend. We meet with our champions every month to talk about the new changes that are going on over here at ALG, what's going on their campuses so that we're able to meet everyone's needs in the best ways we possibly can. And we also host some like spotlight speakers who have some cool stuff to share about affordable resources with them. So they are well-informed advocates for affordable learning. So absolutely do reach out to your champions. And we're listed there as the staff. So another way to get our email addresses to contact us. Here is a little bit about each grant and how it works. So the first ones, the ones that we started out with back in 2014 and we still are doing today, are called transformation grants. Transformation grants are kind of like our mission in a nutshell. You have a course, you're teaching with materials that students are paying way too much for, and you want to transform your course to using zero cost materials or some low cost materials. But you need extra time to do it. You need to develop new resources as you review what's out there. And then you're going to have to share those resources with everyone as open resources to pass that freedom along to everyone else. That's great. That is what we call a transformation grant. You are transforming your course to affordable materials. The funding to this, there is $5,000 maximum per individual team member to cover their salary, to cover course release, travel, etc. All of that is all lumped under per team member maximums. You can have additional project expenses, such as materials, software subscriptions, things that you will need for the project, but they need to be justified in the proposal budget, and they really do need to have their place in your plan. For example, if you have a really high quality video camera, it's going to cost you quite a bit and it's in the budget. Cool. So long as you have very big plans to make a video series, and here is why we need this camera, and that makes a lot of sense. Do not have any additional project expenses in your budget if they're not included on the application, how you're going to use them. That's a big alarm. So you can do additional project expenses. Just make sure that they are integrated into the plan and they're justified in your budget. The maximum total award per grant is $30,000. So if you had a team of 20 folks, you can't have a team of 20 folks being paid $5,000 each for course overload. That would be way too much for one project. There is more to how funding works. Be sure to see the RFP, our request for proposals, for more details. That's where all the details are. It's a big, long document. It's got a lot of different sections to it. It's accessible, so it's nice and structured in the way that you can navigate it. So yeah, make sure that it's very clear in the budget when you have project expenses like authoring tools or equipment. Or travel, if you have a multi-campus project and you're all going to meet 3 times, be sure that you describe that, okay, we're going to meet 3 times and here's how it's going to work. If that's clear, then we know what that budget item is all about. Transformation grants are unique compared to the other 2 types of grants that we have, in that they include student savings estimates, savings per student, and how many students that you're affecting per year directly in this project. The number of students per semester, you'll need to know an estimate, an average per summer, per fall, and per spring. Now, some institutions have like 3 summer semesters. That's okay. Just put them all into one summer semester. We're just doing summer, fall, spring. The annual number of students is the sum of the above. So summer plus fall plus spring, there it is. Okay, so you've got the number of students affected over here. Now here's the original cost of the required materials, the commercial materials that you have been using. How much does it cost per student for those materials? What's the new cost of the required materials? If you're doing a zero-cost project, if you're moving to completely open educational resources, that's going to be 0. Awesome. If you're moving to a low-cost project, something that's under $40, you'll still need to make sure that you take that into account, because the savings per student affected by this project are the original cost of the materials, but it's compared to what a student has to pay afterwards. So the savings could be the entire original cost of the required materials if it's a 0-cost outcome. If it's going to be costing students $25, then it's the original cost minus $25. So that's how much you are saving one student. So you've got your summer students, fall students, and spring students. You've got the annual number, which is the sum of that. You've got how much you're saving each student. So your annual savings are the annual amount of students you would affect on average times the savings per student. Now, if you've got multiple courses, we've got places in the application to indicate, okay, here's this course, here's how it works. So these do focus on student savings. Affordable Learning Georgia has a lot to do with cost. It's in our name. So be sure to keep the comparison between how much you're saving your students total in 1 year to the grant's budget in mind. If peer reviewers and if administrative reviewers are reading something and it's a very big, expensive project, and it's going to save 20 students, a considerable amount each per year, that's going to be a really, really tough one to award, because we're saying that we are awarding a $30,000 project for $20,000 in savings per year. By the time we have awarded, by the time that you've saved students enough that it's met the amount that we've given you as an award, that's a lot of years. We're hoping that it continues forever, but we don't know for sure. So think of it as kind of a return on investment, but the return goes to the students of your courses, not to anyone else, right? We want to make sure that we are making a big impact, including a numerical impact, with what Affordable Learning Georgia spends. So compare your annual savings with the budget for the project. A good rule is to keep that annual savings number over the total budget of the project. That's not a mandate. It's about staying competitive. There are some special cases where this may not be. You might be saving $27,000 per year for your students, and the project may be $30,000, but it's going to be a multi-year project. It's going to save students a lot of money, and it's the building blocks for a huge departmental push towards affordability. That's great. If it's a great proposal, it's still in competition. So all of these do qualify, but if you do not have any student savings, or if you have a very small amount and you're in a transformation grant proposal, it's going to be tougher to compete with the folks out there making a big numerical impact. Now, there are new courses where you may want to do a transformation grant project. This is allowed. It gets a little more complicated than if you were teaching with previous resources and you are going to replace them with new ones, because now you have this point where you're building the course. First of all, if you're building a new course, there are certain assumptions for how much work has to be done by the faculty and by the department to create a new course. And that is kind of built into job descriptions, that's built into budgets that are outside of our grants. So if you're going to be proposing to do entirely zero cost resources for an entirely new course, that's awesome. But your proposal needs to be very clear about the extra work it's going to take on top of creating this new course in the kind of routine methods that your department would go through in creating a new course. So be sure to specify that this is a new course. Specify the commercial materials that would have to be used if this project couldn't take place. That means that you're going to have to be very clear about the work that needs to be done, because you are kind of looking at a theoretical scenario in which it happens and a theoretical scenario in which it doesn't. So yes, you could totally do new courses with transformation grants, but it does get a little bit complicated. You'll have to be very clear about the work that needs to be done. So that's transformation grants, our bread and butter, the first ones we've ever done. After we did a couple of years of those, folks came back and they were like, look, we wouldn't want to re-transform our course. We know we're already teaching with $0 materials or with $20 materials, but we would love to make this course better. We would love to update the currency of this open textbook that nobody else has updated. We'd like to create an entirely new way for students to engage with the materials and make a video series. But we have no way to do that because we can't transform our course again. That's what continuous improvement grants are all about. Continuous improvement grants are ways of taking a low cost or no cost course, whether or not it's gone through our program. You may have already moved your course to no cost materials a long time ago, and you just want to make them better by creating new things, by making a significant revision on the stuff that you've got. That's great. What we're going to do is share those materials out with the world along with your report as open educational resources. So this isn't for routine revision work. For example, if you're doing an online course that has a QM process to it, you tend to do a 3-year revision cycle, and certain things happen during that revision cycle. That's not what we're looking at with continuous improvement grants. We're looking at substantial revisions of materials where you're going to update your teaching materials for accuracy, for currency. For example, if you're in a sociology class, the society, the world, it changes every day, and don't we know it in 2026, right? So you would want to make sure that you're keeping those materials current. So a new revision of those materials that we could share out as open educational resources would be awesome. That would totally qualify. If you're saying, well, we've got modules in D2L, and we need to update with them with some information. We're not going to make anything new out of it, but we're just going to make sure that it's up to date. That doesn't really work because we're not sharing anything out with the world. We're not making a substantial revision to open educational resources. That is more in the course revision bucket that doesn't get covered by these types of grants. If you're going to create new open educational resources, let's say that you've been teaching with modules for a while and you have some informal shared documents out there, but you want to make a formal open textbook. You want to make it very accessible, or you want to make a video series, or you want to make a podcast series so that your students can engage with the materials in different ways, like in Universal Design for Learning. That's a great case for a continuous improvement grant, and we will gladly help out with that and then share out the files that you have created. Now, ancillary materials are a big focus of this because often we look at textbooks. We say, okay, well, this is an open textbook. Great, I will take this open textbook and use it. And then you realize, well, I need lecture slides, and I don't teach the way that the person who made these other lecture slides does. So we need an entirely new set of slides. We need an entirely new set of audiovisual media. Stuff that comes in a package sometimes with commercial resources because they know they can put money into creating those and it will generate sales. Um, Over here, that's what continuous improvement grants are all about, is creating these great ancillary materials along with revised and new uh, open textbooks too. These are smaller grants. They were called mini grants at first. They are 2,000 maximum per team member for salary, course release, travel, what you need to do in order to get the project done. And just like with transformation grants, additional project expenses are allowed. They need to be justified in the proposal budget. Um, you would often see some extra project expenses in continuous improvement grants because you're creating something new. This is where folks might branch out into creating new media. And with new media often comes new equipment. You'll need to justify that in the project budget, but it is welcome. Total award per grant maximum is 10,000. So these are smaller than transformation grants, but no less important. Very good stuff. So be sure to look at the RFP for more details on how the funding works. We are focusing on resources when we're doing continuous improvement grants. This is kind of the like tips and tricks slide that I'm doing at the end of each of these types of grants. These are all about focusing on improving or creating materials that will allow the course to be better and better or to continue using affordable materials. So focus on that plan that you're going to have to improve resources or create them. So be sure to look at first if you're duplicating anything that's already out there. And if you are, you'll have to make the case as to why the creation of your resources is different from the ones that are there. For example, let's say there's a business class that you really want to make an entire video series for. And there's an entire video series for that business class, and it addresses the same learning outcomes overall that you want. Well, okay, but that business class was in Germany and your business class is over here in the United States. So there are huge differences between the cases that you would have to use as case studies, let alone just how the economy functions, how government interacts with businesses. There'd be so much different. Even though you are doing the same thing, it's a different context. So you can make that argument, but be sure to know about it first. Know what's out there, and then be able to say, okay, and this is why we're doing this. If you're going to make a textbook, don't just say, we're going to make an open textbook for our course, and that's the end of that, and here's how we're going to get paid, and that's it. Because then we'll look at that and go, okay, so you don't even have a structure for it yet. That seems weird. Have at least the chapters that you're planning out writing. If you have those written out, you're going to start thinking about the plan almost naturally. Okay, well, we have 12 chapters, and X, Y, and Z professors are specialists in these, so they're going to write these. Well, okay, when are they going to be due by? How are we going to make sure that all of our tones line up for this open textbook? That stuff comes out of outlining what it is you want to make. So start with a basic chapter outline if you're thinking of making a textbook. And from there, you should really wind up with something awesome. Take a look going the other way, going backwards. Look at the learning outcomes first, and then say, and therefore we are going to make this. If you're looking at the learning outcomes first, that will really allow you to let the reader know what it is that you're trying to achieve by doing the thing that you say you're going to do. And make sure that these are, I wouldn't say just transforming instruction, but at least improving it or allowing you to teach the way that you want to teach. Is it supporting pedagogical techniques that you're using? Is it encouraging new ones that you're thinking about? That stuff is great for everyone out there who's looking for new OER outside of your classroom, because maybe they're thinking about the same techniques too. And if they just had a little something to help them out, they could go that affordable route just as well. And you might be the one that helps them. That makes it more impactful. So we're thinking about resources here too. And of course, as of April 26th of this year, all resources that are being used in a public setting for any kind of activity, so every educational resource that's being used for a particular activity, has to be accessible. It's under the WCAG 2.1 AA requirements, which are a lot more complicated sounding than they actually are. We have guides to keep your stuff accessible from the perspective of a faculty member or an instructional designer making OER, not a website, not software. There's a lot out there for that. We've got this accessibility series that I'm linking to in the chat. It's a really easy way to make your stuff baseline accessible, making sure that you've got text replacements for all of your images, making sure that you have screen readable captions and things like that for your videos. Yeah, keeping your stuff accessible is going to be very important going forward. We cannot publish anything that isn't accessible at this point. We do a huge review on this as you submit your resources, and we'll work with you on anything that is inaccessible to hope that you're able to make those changes and that we can publish it. We'll work with you on that. Be sure to contact us. Nikita's adding something to the chat as well. I'm sure this is regarding accessibility. Right. Yeah. So accessibility compliance can be time consuming. Be sure to have it in your plan. And even more important is that complying with accessibility guidelines is great when you're building them. As soon as you have inaccessible things that you have to retrofit to be accessible, you're going to start taking extra time to try to fix that down the line. So planning out accessibility stuff at the beginning is super helpful. It's also going to be attractive to anybody who's reading the proposal, because we love accessibility. We want our stuff to be accessible. We can't even publish it without it being accessible. So both peer and administrative reviewers love to see some planning for accessibility. Thanks, Nikita. And oh, you're typing something else here too. Oh, indeed. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about the third one. This is a smaller one. It's got a limited budget, but we have a way now to transform your courses. We have a way to improve them and create new materials. But what happens when you've got a bigger question? We only focus on courses over here. This course changed this way. Here are the major things we found. Here are the DFW rates for students, things like that. We've improved our textbook. Isn't that great? It helps out with our course. But can I look at something like, what do students think about these new materials? Can I do some additional focus groups and really dive into qualitative research on what makes a psychology textbook appear approachable for someone at a state college level institution? Like, that kind of question gets bigger than your course. That's when we're looking at something like a research grant. These are opportunities to explore research questions that are related to the stuff that ALG does, like open education, including OER, the resources, but also including open pedagogy, using those resources in ways that open allows for, making things more flexible, encouraging more student agency and creating materials. All of that is fair game. Also, affordable materials. So you have plenty of platforms out there that work with open, and also platforms out there that are just lower cost. You can look at aspects of those to try to find out something about affordable education that is bigger than the platform itself or the course itself. Answering the big questions is what research grants are all about. Well, answering, exploring. If you're a researcher, you're like, yeah, answering. Well, that's one thing. Really, you're looking at particular things with a magnifying glass of sorts. Research projects end with a research report, and that's at the end of the final semester of the project. It goes through, here's what we did, here's what we found. This is a summary. If you have supplementary files like data sets, we're not going to share them unless you want them to be shared. And then from there, these materials are shared under an open license, a Creative Commons attribution license, like everything else that we share by default. Um, but also, you can have future plans with this too, and that's what we want out of this. We want this to grow and get even bigger. Um, we want these results to be shared at conferences, and we've seen folks at the Open Education Conference sharing what they did at part of their research grant. Um, yeah, so the research report is sharing the basics of what was done, what you found, how that's going to be applicable and relevant, describing anything you've already done, which is great. But just as interesting are your future plans past that point. What do you want to do with these findings afterwards? So a couple of things to consider about these. First of all, the IRB guidelines vary per institution a bit. There are some IRB guidelines that apply across the system. There are some that apply just at your institution. Be sure to work with your institutional review board as soon as you can to get any research activities in these projects approved. How that works differs by institution. Sometimes you might be filling out a form that gets you in a queue to be assessed on your proposal. Another one might be you email this person over here, and then this person will get back to you. They have a committee, and they'll meet in person once a semester. It depends on the institution. So the quicker that you reach out and the quicker you explore this, the better. If you have IRB plans in your proposal, it's more prepared as a proposal. So that looks even better if you have already worked with your IRB on how this is going to work out. We're encouraging folks to publish and present their findings. Presenting them in peer-reviewed journals is awesome. It works especially well for promotion and tenure. We encourage folks to look at open access publications, but they're not a requirement. Not every subject has a great open access research infrastructure. Some really do. There are fields like physics that have amazing open access journals. They have preprint archives for everything. It's wonderful. Some places do not do that, and some departments and some subject areas don't tend to focus on open access publications that much. So we encourage it, but we're not requiring it. Grant budgets should not include APCs. If you're familiar with this term, it's something that happens where you pay for your article to be open access in a journal that's often run by a for-profit publisher. This can allow your article to be open access, and that's great, but we are covering the work that it takes for something to get done, for something impactful to happen. USG funding for this particular kind of project within our mission is not going to cover APCs. It's tough out there right now. I really wish that every open access journal had a free way for you to publish once something is approved. That's not always the case. And that's one of the reasons why this isn't a requirement. In some places, you've got ultimate open access in wonderful journals. In some places, it's a compromise. And that's why we do not require folks to go down the road of open access every time that they're doing a research project. I hope that changes in the future. I hope there's an infrastructure where we can just say, and it's going to be open access, because of course it is. It's all open now. That would be wonderful. It's not quite reality yet, but I wish it was. These focus on research impact. So we're not looking at the same kind of questions we would ask in a transformation grant of, okay, well, how did the grades work out Were they better or worse than last time? How are they compared to the other semesters? Are there any red flags that are sticking out of, well, this didn't work? We're really looking at the why. And if we're looking at grade data, we're looking at it like disaggregated. How did it affect certain populations, for example? There was a great article by Eddie Watson, who's now over at the AAC&U, and his team at the UGA Center for Teaching and Learning, that broke student data out into various ways of, are you Pell eligible? Are you part-time or full-time? Are you white? Are you Asian? Like that, there were all kinds of different like demographic things and work status things and socioeconomic status things that they broke it out by to see if OER affected folks differently. Their findings at the time were it is disproportionately more so if you're in any type of underserved group. That's awesome stuff to look at. You could look at whether or not somebody is on one track in physics or another track in physics, and they are taking the same introductory physics course. Which approach worked better. You could break out things pedagogically too. That's totally fine. But think of research questions that lead to new insights, not just, hey, what happened in your class? If you're still really looking at one course, think about how you could break out that data more, how you can look further into differences between your students and how that might have affected things. Your institutional research office could help with this. Be sure that you can have access to data like this. Some institutional research programs have very wide open policies, but maybe not enough time to give you the detailed report that you need. Reach out before you apply so that you know what options are available for you. Be sure to think of feasibility too. Research projects, our research grants have led to some really great ideas, some really great insights, some great presentations, but a few of them wound up in huge amounts of delays. So as you're applying for something like this, be sure that you know if you have permission to access what you need in order to do your research. And if you are able to bring somebody in for these, that's going to ensure that you have someone who isn't, teaching a 4-4 course load, who is doing some extra work on this research project. So who could collaborate with you? That is now required. It used to not be required, but we found that projects were way more feasible when they brought somebody in who wasn't just tasked with teaching all of the courses that were being explored here. So you need a non-instructional faculty research collaborator. That can be a student assistant, that could be research faculty, that could be a librarian, an instructional designer. Maybe you're able to do all the research design stuff and do the activities, but the part of it that's really tough on your end is the huge search for a literature review. A librarian could help immensely with that. Or if you're looking at explorations in different types of pedagogies, instructional designers would be wonderful in helping with that. So be creative in who you would like to bring in. I've seen some really cool projects in that space where they bring in somebody who was well connected with exactly what was going on there, but not in a full instructional role. And it's helped them out for sure. Now, the funding structure here is the same as continuous improvement grants, but we only have a small amount of funds to give over the course of a year for research grants. They are a limited amount, so it is a highly competitive group of proposals you're going to be in for this. So be sure to see the RFP for more details on this, including the limit on how much that we could spend in that time. So overall takeaways for the 3 grant types, exactly what we're looking for and how to apply for it. The most competitive proposal, no matter what qualifications you're meeting, is a well-planned and well-written one. Your priorities matter, your numbers matter, but it's way more important to start with a great plan. Keep it realistic. Make sure that you're able to accomplish what you're saying you can accomplish in about a year. You have to get things signed before the project officially starts. So sometimes it can be a little bit less than a year for this project to officially get started. So do keep that in mind when you're planning and collaborate as much as you possibly can. There are folks who are not instructors who can help you out with this. The ones I had already mentioned, plus graphic designers, web designers, if you're going to create a web application. The UNG Press is our partner in open publishing. If you're going to make a really formal textbook, they can help you out with things like copy editing if you include them as part of the team. And consider if you are not in a course that is making a large amount of savings impact, especially for a transformation grant, consider bringing more than one course into the project so that you're affecting more students with one project. And if this is just a unique course and there aren't that many students at the institution who do that, collaborate across institutions. That way you will have a multi-institution project that will affect more students because you are covering a smaller course, but at more than one place. The timeline is pretty simple. I typed R28 instead of R29 there. It should be R29. All of these are around 29. These are the projects that end spring 2027. The application deadline, which is on the Apply for a Grant page, is Monday, March 23rd. After that, we do peer reviews. The next day, I am getting all those applications, especially the ones that just arrived at midnight, and I'm getting them out to our peer reviewers. They have 2 weeks to read through everything and assess every single one according to our rubrics, which are shared on the Apply for a Grant page. We have an administrative review period as well. We are evaluating them through the same rubric, but we have a slightly different perspective as administrators, looking at exactly what our mission is, looking at what's succeeded in the past, what hasn't, and looking at especially compliance with the guidelines too. If there's anything that's out of sorts, we need to make sure that is sorted out if anything is awarded, because these proposals become the statement of work on the agreement for this award. So these proposals aren't just a plan that might happen. They become the plan by the end. Notifications get sent out on Monday, April 20th, and then on Friday, May 8th, we will have our online kickoff together from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So be sure to have that available. At least 2 team members, unless it's a solo project, participate in the required online synchronous kickoff meeting and the midpoint check-in meeting. There's a midpoint meeting. We will give you that date if you're awarded as well. All members are required to participate in a web-based asynchronous training. This is to get everybody on the same playing fields when it comes to knowing what open is, knowing a little bit about copyright, knowing how ALG works. And that way, when we come together as a group, we're not just doing administrative PowerPoints and just talking about the basics of open for 2 hours. And that stuff can be done elsewhere. We're connecting with folks for the kickoff. And links for those will be sent along with the award notifications at that point. So we're about to run through how to apply. We got about 15 minutes left. Any questions about what we just went through, which was a lot? See a couple of folks typing.
Hello. Well, can I ask a
Hello.
short question?
Yes.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I'm Doyon Lee, and is assistant professor at Georgia Southern University. Well, as I understand, the number of students that can be affected to this grant is really important. For example, I'm teaching one course for spring and fall semester, but in summer, the other instructor will teach the course. Then can I include that summer the number of students who take the summer course in the proposal?
Yeah, so I think if you're going to bring in that instructor as part of the project, or if in your proposal you're saying this work affects every single instance of this course, including instructors who are not participating on this but have committed to using these materials, then that's fine. The project is still making that cost impact across the team. So, for example, if you've got a departmental scaling project and you've got a very big course, you've got 4 people on the team and the rest of them are ready to adopt these materials once they've been created. Savings are going to be department-wide. They've all made that commitment. That's great. Even though there's 4 folks on your team, department-wide savings are what you're doing, and that all of those numbers would apply. So yeah, just make sure that you're not including savings that might happen but might not. Like, I've got another instructor, they're teaching in the summer, and I've told them about this project, and they say, we'll see. And then you include them as part of the savings. That wouldn't work because that might happen, that might not. We're looking at what is directly going to happen.
Okay. Well, I have forward the question. So can I also include the departmental expenses for this course? I mean, that cannot be really directly affect the students' expense, but as a department, we need to expense to purchase like this material. Then can I also include that?
So yeah, so when you're creating this plan, everything that you're going to be doing has to be connected with the budget, right? So if you have expenses that your department are going to need to make in order for you to create these new materials, that is something that is an additional project expense that would be acceptable.
Project expenses.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Now, if it's just, and we need some professional development funding for our department because somebody wants to go to a conference and it has nothing to do with our project, that obviously is not something that would work. But if it's our department needs to purchase a high definition camera in order to take photos of slides for a biology project, well, yeah, I mean, the stuff doesn't get created unless you have that equipment. So as long as it's clear that you need to make that purchase, that's part of it.
All right. Thanks so much.
Oh, and thank you, Nikita, for addressing the questions in the chat as well. Yes, graduate, undergraduate are both welcome. Doctoral are welcome. We can focus on more than one course, like a course series. Yes. Yeah, very much. And how you can decide the amount that you decide up to the maximum. Yep. Thank you so much, Nikita.
And actually, Jeff, there's a couple of considerations in those questions, if you want to read through a little bit more, that I know you're going to address pretty soon, but I want you to expand a little bit more on, such as including multiple courses in one transformation project and the considerations for that. The person is asking about multiple courses. And then also the priority considerations, which I know is in the next segment, that you'll be talking a little bit more about that as well. Being able to include multiple courses from different levels, what kind of considerations we may need to consider in that as well.
Yes.
Those are the 2 things from the questions that kind of popped up.
So in the next part where we're going to talk about how to apply, that's not going to be a big part of it. So I do want to address it right here. Make sure that it's clear that your project is feasible. So if you are including multiple courses in this project and you've got a lot of folks and a lot of moving parts, be sure that you've got a plan for how all of those parts are going to move and that everybody has the time that they need and the expertise to do what they've got to do in order for it to happen. But in terms of us looking at a project and saying this is going to affect 5 different math courses and that's how it impacts a lot of students, that's fine by us. That's perfectly fine. It just needs to be well planned. And yeah, if it's a grad course or an undergraduate course, those are accepted. We're not segmenting these by just introductory level or just master's level or anything like that. Anyone is welcome to. Yes.
And so I want you to also differentiate what would make multiple courses be in one transformation proposal versus needing to separate those proposals into multiple project proposals. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
So this will differ by the situation in some ways. Let's say that you've got a gigantic super section course and you have a raft of materials you've got to create in order to make this work as a zero cost course. And you've got a whole team that's going to do just that one thing. If you have 6 other courses attached to that project, that might be very tough to do. Now, let's say that you have an undergraduate and a graduate version of the same course, but they are different levels. So over here you have the graduate version of the course and you have the undergrad version of the course. That seems a little bit more feasible because you are already addressing some of the same learning outcomes. You're just adding things over here, or you're removing things that they've already learned over here. Those projects we've seen those in the past, where there's a graduate version and an undergraduate version, and that's perfectly fine. The most important thing here is just whether or not it is a realistic project to do. The plan is going to make that very clear. If you wind up with a plan and it is going to take 5 years for the team that you've got, or it's going to take a zillion people, maybe that's more than one project for more than these courses can be. Yeah, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. But yeah, it's not something that is restricted in any way. It's not something that is looked at numerically, like a number of courses is too much. But the proposal should have a plan that's doable within a year with the team that you have. Yes.
And I'll just make mention as well that if you have any questions about that, if you're concerned if your proposal is appropriate for the task, certainly reach out to Jeff and I, and we can kind of help you work through some of that, as well as perhaps your champions on your campus.
Yeah.
And Jeff, you said the priority considerations is not a specific topic in the next segment, but maybe just touch on that for a moment, unless we're going to get to that.
All right. So let me go to here to presenter view then. And I'm going to go pretty far over just to let you know. So in transformation grants, we have some categories that can award a few points. They receive some priority because they fit a strategic goal of ALG. They fit something that ensures that a project is going to be successful. These aren't requirements. You don't have to meet them. They can help. One is collaborative projects with professional support. That means you're bringing in somebody who's not just another instructor in your department, someone with different kind of expertise to help you throughout the project. They can be the coordinator. They can be taking care of something that you may not be familiar with. That's something that really helps projects get across the finish line. There's student participation involving student assistants, student participants in the creation, the remixing, the editing. This is not students just filling out an end of semester survey. This is them being part of the team and really helping out in that category as active participants. There's departmental scaling, so open, no cost or low cost materials across the department for that course. A department-wide all-section scale. That takes a lot of consensus building. That takes a lot of meetings. Those projects do get some priority because there is a level of commitment there that works very well. And then there's upper-level campus collaborations. If you have an upper-level course and you are working across institutions, more than one institution is involved, that's what we're looking for with this. Upper level courses tend to have a smaller amount of students. And because of that, at one institution, it may not be feasible for you to make a big impact on your campus. But if you move 2 of those together, 2 institutions, students in one project, you may be making a higher impact. Yeah. So Nikita says that, yeah, we now have gone on to extra stuff. So time is running low. So do type in your questions and we can reply here. And thanks to Nikita for taking a look at that. So I'm going to run through this quickly. I hope that the forms are explainable enough when you look at them that you'll be able to fill them out and won't have too many questions. But if you do, please do reach out to us. The first thing you need to do is make a great plan. Don't start with the application. Get your folks together. Think about what you would like to do. Then use the Word template for the proposal on our page to start planning out the project. There's a lot of tables in there that will guide you along. Who's involved, who's responsible for which tasks, how long are those tasks going to take? That's all part of the application. So reach out to folks, start working together on a great plan. Read through the RFP. The RFP has detailed requirements and talks about exactly how this stuff works. Read through our rubrics. They're all on the Apply for a Grant page. This is how they will be reviewed. Then make sure you get supervisory approvals. Letters of support are different for round 29. They all use a template. The reason why they use a template is we want to ensure that every supervisor of somebody on the team agrees that if this project is awarded, that they will be doing that work. So usually that's the department chair if you have a team of instructors. But if you have a librarian as part of the team, that librarian supervisor needs to know. The letter of support affirms that everybody on your team has supervisory approval. That part of it hadn't been covered as strictly as it was now. And we got a few, hey, nobody told me about this project emails. And we went, whoa, wait a minute. And it's because collaborators had a different approver than the person who was writing the letter of support. So use that new template and be extra sure when it's an instructional designer or librarian that they are approved by their supervisors to do this work if it's awarded. Meet your grants office. Teams need to get to know who their grant folks are. Sometimes it's your business office. If you're a smaller place, you may not have a sponsored programs office. It may just be the folks who do all the invoices and all the contracts. Get to know who your contact is going to be, because you'll have to check in with them on whether or not the agreement's been signed. You'll have to check in on them on whether or not they've invoiced us and gotten funding from us. You'll need to know who to reach out to. The USG, by the way, is not an external organization. These are not external grants. So facilities and administration, the stuff that an external organization has to pay to keep the lights on because they are not part of that organization and you're doing their work, those are prohibited in these grants. See the RFP for more details on this, but facilities and administration are very specific. This is not things like your taxes and your healthcare, your fringes. That is included as part of what has to be covered. So the fourth part of this is that you apply. So you use the Apply for a Grant page. Make sure that the Word proposal is done. Be sure to stop tracking and remove comments from the proposal. I've gotten some with comments on them. I delete them, I get rid of them, but it doesn't look great. Officially apply using the online form. So once you use the online form, that's the official submitting the application. That is linked on the Apply for a Grant page, and as you move through it, you'll be sent to different pages based on what you're applying for. If you encounter any problems or if you are a little bit unclear on a question, reach out to us as soon as possible and let us know. So don't visit the Apply for a Grant page and then go to the online form at midnight the night before this is due, because if you're confused about something, you'll want to reach out to us and we'll help you out with that. Helping out with that past the deadline is a little too late. So please do be sure to check that out before. Now, it is 11:59. We addressed some of the questions in the middle, and I think that that was a really good choice. So we don't have too much time for questions right now. What I'm going to do is allow questions to keep coming. I'm going to take a look at the chat. I'm going to reiterate that we've got these links. We've got Apply for a Grant for you to apply, the grants archive for all the previous proposals, staff and champions for the folks you want to reach out to, and our email addresses at jeff.galan@usg.edu and nikita.afaha@usg.edu. if you have any questions past this point. So I'm going to look at the chat to make sure that we've addressed everything. Thank you so much, Nikita, for addressing the chat as we go along. Let me see. Yep. Okay.
And I think for those who want to stay, we can keep the recording going and finish questions here, but also drop them in the chat. We'll make sure to email you directly or separately afterwards.
Yeah, so Dr. Sarkar here says, when is an appropriate time to apply for a continuous improvement grant? In that case, it really is whenever it makes sense. So if you've got, if you had a transformation grant and it ends and you go, you know, throughout this whole project, we really wanted to do this extra thing and we weren't able to do it because it wasn't in the plan, but it would really help. That's grounds for a CI grant as soon as that project is done. If it's 5 years past the point, that's also fine. I think either of them, so long as you can make the case for it for peer reviewers and for us, it works.
Yeah, the final report will be due probably afterwards because the deadline for submitting the R29 is previous to that one.
Yeah.
So I would like to definitely continue our work. So I'm thinking of doing that. Just wanted to make sure that I don't have to wait for another year. There will be kind of a gap in between our enhancement or enrichment program. So I would like to apply for that. So that's why I thought I should ask you directly. Well,
you'll want to
thank you.
keep in mind, you'll want to keep the application in mind when you're doing this, though, because let's say that you put on there, okay, we are, because the final report's not due before you apply, right?
Mm-hmm.
You say, this project is still happening. And then you don't leave too much else there. And then you say, and now we're going to do this. The readers at that point would go, well, how do we know that this is going to end well? Do we know that the work has been done on the final report? Like, if you're clear about what's already been done and what ends like, hey, the reporting just has to happen past this point, and here's the extra stuff that needs to be done past this point. I think it would give people a lot more security knowing that, okay, this stuff has been created already. It's not like, well, the textbook's up in the air and then we're going to build a supplement to the textbook as part of a continuous improvement grant. I mean, it seems silly to say it, but we've read proposals where we're like, wait, huh? And the answer usually is very sound, but the answer has to be on the proposal.
Yes.
Nikita, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just mention also in relation to that, Jeff, do you think it would be good for her to include a final report draft in the application for the continuous improvement, or perhaps not necessary?
I think that would be too much. I think it would confuse, especially people who are not us.
Right.
But at least a good summary of what happened, what's been created, and how this is going to build on it would work.
Yeah, actually, the effect already we get to see, and some of the evidences maybe can be projected in that, and then as a continuous idea what we have and how we want to build onto the existing content would be really enrichment. So yeah, thank you for the guidance. It was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, do we have any questions that are still up in the air?
Nope, I think everything got addressed, except maybe when the slides and recording will be out and where. I believe it's going to be on our website, but I don't know if we're sending a direct email or not.
Yeah, so we'll be sharing these directly on the Apply for a Grant page. We'll contact everybody who attended today with the slides and the recording as well. It takes a little bit of time. Not only do we have to download a giant video and put it in our shared system, we then have to get it processed by YouTube. We have to get the subtitles up and running and make sure that that stuff is accessible, because it all has to be accessible. So it won't be this afternoon, but it will be soon that it will be right on the Apply for a Grant page, and we'll be sharing this out through email. Anyone else? All right, I am going to stop recording. Thank you so much for attending today and for your interest. Reach out to us if you have any questions as you move forward.
Thanks, everyone.